In this video, I'm going to tell you how I coached a runner from running his first marathon to running a sub 3 hour marathon, all within 18 months. And if you follow these tips, these simple things that I'm going to tell you, you can also take a huge chunk off your marathon time. Hello everybody and welcome to FORDY Runs. My name is Chris Ford and I'm a qualified athletics and running coach. Now I coach runners all over the world on a one-to-one basis and we've had some incredible results. So today I wanted to share with you the simple training methods that I use to coach a runner from his first marathon in London all the way down to a sub 3 hour marathon in Berlin in 2024. Now I did that within 18 months, and if you implement the three things, just the three simple things that I tell you at the end of this video, that will immediately make a huge impact on your running. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video. Okay, so let's give you some background firstly on the runner. Now some of you are going to know this runner and his name is Ben. You would have seen him hopefully on some of the weekly episodes that we do because I train with him most weeks. Now when I first started working with Ben, he was a steady runner, I would say. He loved half marathons, but he couldn't break 1 hour and 45 minutes. He was pretty inconsistent. He wasn't doing a hell of a lot of work in the gym. He was just like me and you. So the first thing he did, he came to me for a training plan for his London marathon. Now that first training plan was a simple training plan, but effective. It was a consistent plan aimed at running 4 to 5 times a week with the introduction of strength and conditioning. I told him to improve his diet and focus on getting some more sleep. I didn't know at the time, but he was actually smoking as well, which he has since stopped. Now during that plan, he trained well, again focusing on being consistent and steady mileage weeks, but nothing crazy. Sub 4 marathon pace was our target on those longer runs, but we didn't do anything crazy. We just did a nice, consistent, steady training plan for 16 weeks. Ben ran the London Marathon with no time expectation at all. His only goal was to finish. He ran steady and conservative the whole way and ran purely to feel. He finished that race in 3 hours and 42 minutes. Now next up for Ben was Chicago. So with that in mind, we put into place a speed training program for over the summer. Now this involved a lot of shorter, dedicated sessions to higher efforts. There was the usual hill repeats in there, plenty of tempo runs, that kind of stuff. I pushed him into entering a few races over the summer, some 10Ks and some half marathons. Now the aim of this was to build some mental toughness, some tolerance to running hard over a distance. That it might seem a strange thing to do, but because I knew we had Chicago, I needed to build some mental toughness into him. So I used the shorter distances along with those speed sessions to really test him out mentally, to get him on the pain train, to understand what it's like to hit the limit, because in the marathon you will hit that limit. So I needed him to overcome that, and it took some time, but we cracked it. Now I wrote him the Chicago plan with increased mileage. I also introduced a fair amount of goal-paced work into his longer runs. I made sure he focused on the gym sessions at least twice a week because I needed him strong. I didn't want him to fade from 20 miles and onwards. We focused also on recovery, making sure that he was doing the right things, you know, sleeping, resting, active recovery as well. Again, highlighting the importance of a good balanced diet and obviously hydration. Now I set a goal pace for that marathon training plan of around 8-minute miles. That was basically a 3:30 marathon. I wanted him to work there on those longer runs and some of those middle distance runs that I put in for the middle of the week. We also played with the taper on this plan. We went from a 3-week taper down to a 2-week taper to see what effect that would have on him. Now in terms of the actual race, I did set him a target of beating 3:42. That was his first sort of target in a marathon race to do. I wanted to see how he would react to running under that little bit of pressure like I'd done in those other races, those 10K, those half marathons in the marathon distance. So the aim was to beat 3:42 and he came in at 3:21. Now, before we carry on with the rest of this video, if you're interested in working with me, make sure you head over to fordyruns.com or drop me an email at hello@fordyruns.com. So after Chicago, Ben asked me whether a sub 3 hour marathon was possible, to which I replied, hell yeah. But I did say to him, we're not going to go for it in spring 2024. We're actually going to go for it in Berlin. Now the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to put him through another training plan, another training block where I would increase the mileage, but also the intensity. And he would benefit a hell of a lot from doing this first block to take that into his second block ready for Berlin. So the Manchester Marathon was the race that we picked, and the training plan would mirror to a degree what we would do for Berlin. I sprinkled a fair amount of sub 3 hour marathon pace into those runs, not as much as we did for Berlin, but I sprinkled a fair amount in there. We worked a lot on the middle distance runs, and we also did quite a bit of double run days as well. The other important thing that we carried on doing was working with his PT, making sure that he was getting really good strength and conditioning sessions done in the gym. Adding to that, he was also training for the Swim the Serpentine, so that really helped as well. And also the Ride 100. So he was doing a fair amount of cross training, which is one of the things I think really helped him. Now for the spring marathon, we didn't put any pressure on him to run a time at all. I took that completely away from him. I did say to him, go out and see what you could do. If you can run, under 3:21, that would be great, but don't worry about it if you do or you don't. Just go out there and see what you can do. He ran 3:11. But most importantly, as a coach, I looked at how quickly he recovered from that 3:11. I looked at what he was like after the race, but also the week after. And I quickly realised there was a lot more in the tank. So like I said, the Berlin plan would mirror the Manchester plan quite closely. But the big difference was the sub-hour 3 paced runs in that training plan. There was a lot of long runs of 18 and 20 miles with a hell of a lot of goal pace in them. Now he was doing all the other bits, the speed work, the hill repeats and all the other, essential parts of any training plan. But the long runs with that sub 3 hour marathon pacing, including a 16-mile goal pace run that was in there, all worked very well together. And none of it was really alien to him because he'd done a fair amount of similar stuff for Manchester. Now peak mileage was about 70 miles for that plan. Now the key to this training block from my side was managing his body and his mind. He was doing a lot of high efforts and he was doing a lot of high miles. So on some weeks we pulled back and other weeks we pushed, and a lot of that was based on how he was feeling. So for example, he had like a dodgy calf one week and I said to him, look Ben, let's take it down, let's do a down week, and we reduced everything down. We got on top of it and he came back strong. It was really important in that final Berlin training block to listen to his body, listen to his mind, and make sure his recovery was on point. Now in terms of the taper, we'd stuck to the 2-week taper because that had definitely worked for that Manchester Marathon. We dropped the mileage down, but we kept a reasonable amount of goal pace work in there. Now the race was an absolute dream. He ran it perfectly and he came in at our predicted time of 2:56. He was absolutely spot on. And the remarkable thing is he then went to Chicago and ran 3 hours dead, and then went to New York and ran, I think, about 3 hours and 20 something minutes as well, which is testament to how strong a runner he has become. So that's the journey, and that took 18 months. Now the tips and the takeaways that I want you to go away with are these: structure, consistency, and belief. Now if you can add structure to your running, you will then become consistent. And if you start to believe in your ability, if you start to believe in what you're doing and get that confidence, your running times honestly will start to fall. But the key is having that structure and being consistent. Once you have those two elements, with that belief, with that confidence, your times will drop. So they're the important things to take away from today, because that's what happened to Ben. If you go back and listen again, we put structure in. We gave him the consistency of running several times a week, but also the consistency of hitting the gym a couple of times a week. I then gave him the belief that he could run hard, he could run fast, he could maintain those paces, and he took them into race day and he achieved what he wanted to achieve, which was that sub 3 hour marathon. So there we go guys, that's an insight in how I took Ben from his first marathon to a sub 3 hour marathon within 18 months. And like I said, if you're interested in coaching, get in touch today. Drop me an email at hello@fordyruns.com. Okay guys, that's enough from me. I shall catch you all later.